It was just another ordinary Tuesday morning in Manchester, New Hampshire, when Karoline received a phone call that changed everything. Her husband, Daniel, had gone to their local bank to resolve a minor issue with their joint account. But instead of returning home with a solution, he came back humiliated and confused, escorted out by security and told never to return. Karoline, a calm and reserved woman by nature, listened quietly as Daniel explained what had happened. But behind her composed expression, something shifted. What she did next wasn't out of anger. It was something no one, not even Daniel, saw coming. Without saying a word, Karoline grabbed her keys and walked out the door. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She didn't even ask Daniel for more details. She simply drove, not in the direction of work or school drop-off, or the grocery store like on any other day. She drove straight to the bank. As she stepped inside, the air shifted. The same teller who had witnessed Daniel's removal froze for a moment when she saw Karoline approaching. Calm but firm, Karoline walked up to the front desk and asked to speak with the branch manager. Her voice was steady, almost too quiet, but there was something in her eyes, a fire that hadn't been there before. The manager, a man in his early 40s with a name tag that read Greg M., came out with a polite smile that quickly faded when Karoline introduced herself. Before he could launch into a scripted explanation, she held up her hand. "I'm not here to yell," she said. "I'm here to understand why a man, my husband, was kicked out of this bank without explanation. And I'd like to see the security footage." Greg hesitated. "I don't think we can." "You can," she interrupted, still calm, "because this isn't just about what happened. It's about how you treated someone who came here in good faith. And now you're going to show me why." The room fell silent. Tellers exchanged nervous glances. A security guard shifted uncomfortably near the back door. What happened next would not only make headlines in their local paper, it would spark a conversation far beyond the walls of that bank. Greg shifted uncomfortably, tugging at the edge of his blazer. "I understand you're upset, Mrs. Leavitt, but we can't just release security footage to anyone. To a wife." Karoline raised an eyebrow, folding her arms. "You kicked my husband out of a public-facing institution. He didn't yell, didn't threaten, didn't break the law. So I'll ask again, why?" Greg hesitated. Something in his posture changed, not guilt, not arrogance, more like caution. He leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice. "There's more to the story, Mrs. Leavitt. It might be best if you and your husband discussed. My husband came home shaken," she cut in. "He said he was treated like a criminal. My husband, who pays your fees on time, who built his small business from nothing, who walked in here asking for a simple printout of last month's statement." Greg went silent. Karoline took a breath. Her voice softened. "Listen, I'm not here to cause a scene. I just want the truth. If there's a mistake, fine. Admit it. If it's something more, then say it. But I'm not leaving here with nothing." There was a pause. Then, reluctantly, Greg motioned toward the hallway behind the teller stations. "Come with me." He led her past the counters, through a narrow corridor to a back office. The blinds were drawn, and a screen glowed faintly on the desk. He clicked a few keys. Footage from earlier that morning appeared. Karoline watched as Daniel walked into the bank, waited patiently, then approached the counter. He smiled, leaned in to speak. Then the teller's face stiffened. She said something quietly and gestured toward the back. Moments later, a uniformed guard appeared, whispered something to Daniel, and escorted him out. Karoline frowned. There's no confrontation, no shouting. He didn't even raise his hands. Greg didn't answer. He scrubbed the timeline forward. Another clip loaded. It was audio from a phone call between two staffers. A woman's voice. That's him. The guy they flagged last week. Different name but same face. Pull his info now. Karoline blinked. Flagged? For what? Greg rubbed his temple. We've had alerts come down from corporate about a fraud ring. Someone using fake IDs at multiple branches. They thought your husband matched a description. A mistake, obviously. Obviously? Karoline's voice cracked for the first time. And no one thought to ask him before throwing him out? She stood slowly. We're not done here. As she walked out of the office, employees turned to look. Karoline didn't stop, didn't speak. But in her eyes was a quiet resolve, the kind that didn't fade once the door closed. Because what started as a misunderstanding might have been something much bigger. And Karoline Leavitt was no longer just a wife trying to protect her husband. She was about to become something else entirely. The drive home was quiet. Daniel sat next to Karoline, his hands tightly gripping the passenger seat as if he was still trying to hold onto some shred of control. But Karoline wasn't focused on him. Her mind was racing, the pieces of the puzzle coming together slowly but surely. Something was off. It didn't make sense for Daniel to be flagged without explanation, without a warning. When they got home, she didn't wait for him to speak. She needed answers. Daniel, what aren't you telling me? He looked at her, his face pale, eyes distant. What do you mean? I told you everything. I told you what happened at the bank. Not everything, Karoline snapped. There's something you're not saying. I know you, and I can see it in your eyes. What was really going on that day? Daniel hesitated. His lips parted but no words came out. For a long moment, it felt like the air between them thickened, heavy with unspoken truths. Finally, he took a deep breath. I didn't think it mattered, Karoline. But you're right. There's more. There's always been more. Karoline felt her pulse quicken. What do you mean more? He closed his eyes, as if gathering the strength to say the words. The bank? They didn't flag me because of some fraud alert. They flagged me because of my past. A past I've tried to leave behind. Karoline's stomach dropped. What do you mean? What past? Daniel stood up and walked to the window, staring out into the night. Before I met you, I made some mistakes. Things I'm not proud of. I wasn't always the man I am now. I was in a bad place, doing things I shouldn't have. Some of those things, they came back. And now they're catching up with me. Karoline's heart began to race. What are you talking about? Are you in trouble? He turned to face her, guilt in his eyes. I didn't want to tell you. I wanted to protect you from this. But I can't hide it anymore. I've been running from it for years. They know who I am. The bank? The fraud alert wasn't a mistake. Someone from my past is behind it. Karoline took a step toward him, her voice trembling. Who? Who is it? What do they want? Daniel shook his head, his face clouded with fear. I don't know yet, but they've been watching me, Karoline. And now they're making their move. I'm not just worried about me, I'm worried about us. The silence between them was thick with fear and uncertainty. Karoline felt her mind spinning, trying to process the weight of what he had just confessed. Her husband, the man she had built a life with, had a past she knew nothing about, a past that had now surfaced in the most dangerous way. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized this wasn't just about the bank anymore. There was something much bigger at play here. Someone, somewhere, was using Daniel to cover up something. But what? And why had they chosen now, when everything seemed to be falling into place? The next few days felt like a blur. Karoline couldn't focus. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the footage from the bank, the way the teller had flagged Daniel without a second thought, the way the manager had tried to brush everything under the rug. But the more she thought about it, the more she felt something dark lurking just beneath the surface. There was someone pulling the strings, and Karoline Leavitt was going to find out who. Karoline couldn't shake the feeling that she was on the verge of discovering something bigger than she'd imagined. She spent the next few days digging through old records, combing through the small details Daniel had missed in his story. Every time she uncovered a lead, it felt like another piece of the puzzle slipped into place, but with it came a growing sense of dread. It wasn't just a mistake. It wasn't just a misunderstanding at the bank. Something had been orchestrated, and it went deeper than a fraud ring or a random past mistake. One evening, after Daniel had gone to bed, Karoline found herself alone in front of the computer screen, staring at a list of old transactions, old addresses, names. Nothing concrete, but it was enough to make her blood run cold. One name kept coming up, a name she recognized, John A. Sinclair. Karoline's fingers hovered over the keyboard, the weight of that name heavy in the air. John Sinclair was someone from Daniel's past he had never mentioned. Karoline had heard rumors about a person who might have been involved in shady dealings, but until now, she hadn't connected the dots. This was the link she needed. She didn't waste any time. She picked up her phone, her heart pounding in her chest. The number for a private investigator she'd used years ago flashed in her mind. A moment later, she was speaking to someone on the other end, setting up a meeting. The next day, Karoline met with the investigator. She laid out everything she had gathered, all the details she had uncovered over the past few days. The PI listened, nodded, and made notes. "You're right to be concerned," the investigator said finally. "This isn't just about fraud. Sinclair is a name that goes beyond that. He's been involved in a lot of questionable activities. Your husband is being used. He's a pawn in something much bigger." Karoline's stomach churned. But why? Why would they involve Daniel? The PI leaned back in his chair, looking grave. "Someone wants to silence your husband, and it looks like they're using his past to do it. Sinclair is likely leveraging whatever Daniel did before to manipulate him into doing something he doesn't even realize." Karoline's mind raced. Was Daniel being blackmailed? Had Sinclair been pulling the strings all along? Before she could ask more questions, the investigator stood up. "I'll look into Sinclair's connections and see what we can find. But you need to be careful. Whoever is behind this has already made their move. And it's not over yet." Karoline left the office with her heart pounding, her mind reeling. She felt like she was standing at the edge of a cliff, and every step forward could lead to either truth or danger. She had come so far, but there were still too many unknowns. That night, she waited for Daniel to return. When he walked through the door, she stood up and met his eyes. "We need to talk," she said, her voice firm. Daniel froze. "What's going on, Karoline? What did you find?" "I know who's behind it," she said. "John Sinclair. Your past, everything. They've been using you, Daniel. But I don't think it's just about money or fraud. They want something more." Daniel's face went pale. "Karoline, I didn't want you to find out this way. I thought I could protect you, keep you safe from everything I've done." "You didn't protect me, Daniel," Karoline said, her voice breaking. "But I can't protect you either if you don't tell me the truth." Daniel stood still for a moment, the weight of her words sinking in. He took a deep breath and then nodded slowly. "I've been trying to run from this for years," he confessed. "But the truth is, they won't let me. I have to face it. Face them. If I don't, they'll come after us both." Karoline could feel her heart racing. This wasn't just about a bank. It wasn't just about some past mistake. It was about survival, and it was about to get far more dangerous. Daniel reached for her hand. "I'm sorry, Karoline, but we have to end this. Together." Her grip tightened on his hand, and she looked him in the eye. "We'll get through this, but we can't keep running. We need to face it, whatever it takes."